You know, they say wisdom comes with age, all right?
Yes.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
My younger self. Pay more attention, be more mindful of the moments.
I think the one thing that I would do is tell myself or that person to plan for the future.
Eat better and exercise and plan today for the future.
I would probably give myself some advice of eating more of the right kinds of food and spending some time doing some exercise with a little bit of discipline behind it, because oftentimes the body does not get what it needs.
Finish college. Yes, indeed, finish college. I would tell myself, go on and finish. You don't have to get married this quickly. You can finish college.
Get prepared for aging before you know you're aging.
Take better care of yourself. Because when you get older, things you did when you were younger going to catch up with you.
So if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give?
Don't play college football.
Don't go in the Army.
I would learn how to work at an earlier age, how to apply myself.
I would say stop and think about things and decisions carefully. Just don't jump and make a quick decision.
Start a 401k, enroll in a pension plan, and be very prepared for retirement, and maintain your health. That if you have good health, no matter how long you live, you can enjoy it.
I used to look at my parents and think they were so old and they'd slowed down and life was boring, but it is super not boring because you have all that wisdom behind you, so you don't do dumb things, which means you don't spend all this time and all this hassly stuff. It's just clean life and it is so much fun.
So I'll ask all of you the same question. What advice would you give your younger self? Who wants to start with that answer?
I'll start.
All right, go.
Well, I think it is so important to keep friendships intact because old friends are great friends, and sometimes we just let go of those friendships as we get younger. We don't cultivate them like we should, and then we really miss out later in life.
Ken, what's your advice?
I think it'd be take school more seriously. You know, when I was young and in school, I was in school to get done with it.
Okay.
From grammar school to high school to college, and my brother gave me some advice, and I wish I would have heeded it, but he said, you know, you've got the rest of your life to live and to take advantage of what you're doing now. Just spend some time on it now for these few years, and it'll improve the rest of your life. Gosh, if, you know, I think about what if I would have majored in this, but it was too hard, you know, just, I think if I would have paid more attention to my schooling, it would have probably made for a more productive life.
Ruth Ann?
Really, the thing that I would tell myself is to quit getting hung up on big things and just recognize that moments are what make memories. You know, no one ever said anything like that, and my family was very work ethic, you know, and so sometimes tasks became more important than taking care of relationships.
So appreciate those small moments in life. Jimmy, how about you?
I think the thing I would do if I had a chance to live over would be to take more chances. I know there were opportunities that presented itself, and most of the times I hesitated, and I think back, I wish I had done this or that. And if I had it to do over, I think I'd be more aggressive and take more chances than I had in the past.
Well, I guess we've all had moments in our lives where we've been in that fork in the road, and we always wondered, right? Don't we wonder, what if I had done this? What if I'd done that?
Sure.
How would my life be different? Of course, we'll never know, but anyway. Let me quote some words of wisdom from you for some various celebrities and famous people, and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
First up is Satchel Paige. Great baseball pitcher, played professionally till he was 59 years old. And he said, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? which I guess is his way of saying, how old do you feel? All right, let's go around. How old do you feel?
30.
Why do you feel 30?
Well, because I think I'm smart enough to know things that I didn't know in my 20s. I want to be 30. I liked 30. It was a good age because I felt good, and I think I still do feel good. I talk to myself every day about saying, how young do you want to be? Because if you truly tell yourself every day, I feel like this, whatever this is, that's truly what you feel like. So I think 30 is a good age, so I'm going to be 30.
You're going to stick with 30, all right. Ken, how old do you feel?
I tell you, emotionally, I feel like I'm 21. But sometimes, and the folks at this table know, I tend to kind of cut up a lot at events and things, and sometimes I have to remind myself, you know what, I'm in my 50s.
You're an adult.
It's time to grow up. But it's hard to grow up. So emotionally, I feel very young, but I'm reminded as I go to the back doctor again this morning, first thing on Monday morning, that I'm in my 50s and I feel like I'm in my 60s and 70s sometimes because of my back problem. So physically, I don't feel that young, but emotionally, I still feel really young.
Yeah, I got to follow up to that one in a minute. But Ruth Ann, tell me, how old do you feel?
Well, that's what I was just going to follow up to that, because yesterday evening my husband and I were sitting on the porch, and I just out of the blue, we were reading, and out of the blue I looked and I said, are we grown-ups yet? You know, because we don't feel it. Physically, we definitely feel it. But emotionally and mentally, no. You know, I feel like I'm still back in my 20s.
How old do you feel, Jimmy?
Other than physical activity, I don't think I'm very old. The only time it shows is when I'm doing some yard work or something of that type that requires physical activity. But I think I'm kind of like Ken. I'm in the middle 20s. I still enjoy life and have a lot to contribute.
Well, you know, all of your responses sort of fall in line with a Pew Research survey that I read. This was a few years ago. And they interviewed 3,000 adults. And nearly half of the respondents 50 and older said they felt at least 10 years younger. The group 65 to 74 felt 10 to 19 years younger. And then 1/6 of the people in that same group said they were 20 years younger than their chronological age. So you're in good company, obviously. But I want to go back to your comments that you've had about this, and I've always felt it too, this difference between the way our brains age and the way our bodies age. There seems to be a disconnect there, that our brains don't age, except in the case of dementia, of course, that our brains don't age at the same rate as our bodies. And why? I mean, you put it so well, but why do you think it's that way?
You know, I don't know. I've thought about that before. It's like I hold on to memories in the past, and I think of myself as that person. It's easier to think of myself as that person 20 years ago than it is to physically do it, because I used to be fast and kind of strong. My body won't let me do those things, but my mind will. So as long as my mind is working, I can be as young as I want.
I think of all the things that we try to do to make ourselves younger, look younger, feel younger, whatever. And the truth is our body ages. I mean, that's going to happen no matter what. But so much of it, like Ken said, is an emotional thing. So I think sometimes you have to look for those things that make you feel younger, and those things that make you look forward to feeling younger. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. Oddly enough, it does make sense. Well, okay, since all of you, everybody at this table feels younger than they really are, we've all decided that.
Sure.
The question is then, at what age does old age begin?
Did you read recently about the lady in France that passed away at age 120?
Yes, I did. Yes.
And she was asked at age 116 or 17 how she felt, and she said, well, I can't see, I can't hear, and I hurt, but other than that, I'm okay. And so as we get older, we have aches and pains, but I think we have a tendency to ignore them unless they're serious. And then who we associate with and what we do and how do we keep our mind active. Keeping young in your mind is a big factor.
As we are aging, If we say that we feel 25, then 35 is old. If we think that we're 65, then 80 is old. It just keeps advancing because we don't feel old.
I'll quote Gertrude Stein on this one. She said, "We are always the same age inside."
I believe
There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. Now, we talked about the difference between aging brains, aging bodies. How do we help our bodies keep pace with our younger brains? What can we do?
Well, I think reading, keeping young mentally, exercise, staying active physically, the right kind of diet, all of those things are contributing factors to keep the body and the mind more in line with the way we really are.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, maybe where I grew up, but I wish I knew then about how important what you put in your mouth was, and your exercise, and even your outlook on life. That wasn't something that was ever stressed. I stress it to my children, but they're going to make their own mistakes.
Yeah.
You know.
Here's another quote. This is from Andy Rooney, commentator Andy Rooney. He said, "It's paradoxical that the idea of living a long life appeals to everyone, but the idea of getting old doesn't appeal to anyone." Which there's a lot of truth, I think, in that statement. But why? Why do we have in this country, and maybe it's not limited to us, why is there this stigma about aging and getting older?
I think there is a stigma. And I think it is because of what Ruth Ann said earlier. We want to be a certain age in our head, and we feel younger than we are. But everything, and I think society does this to us too, tells us that as we get old, we're going to have this and this and this and this and this. So I think that's what we have to look at. I think we have to look at moving forward with that whole emotional mindset, like Ken said, of I want to feel this way, so I'm going to act like I feel this way. And I'm going to take care of my body so that I can feel this way longer.
Have any of you ever experienced age discrimination in your life?
I think I do quite often.
Okay.
Especially when you got as much gray hair as I have. I notice, for example, when I'm driving, people behind me seem to sense that I'm an older person, so they pass me quickly or cut you off. And
by the way, I'd like to apologize.
and of course, there's some advantages. You know, you go in a restaurant, you get a discount, or so you do see how age discrimination enters the picture. Yeah.
Anybody else have a discrimination that you can identify?
I think our children discriminate against us a little bit sometimes. I know my son said just kind of fell out of his mouth one day when John and I were about to go out of the country, and he goes, "You know, you guys are getting older." We were like, "What?" I was insulted by it. You know, you guys are getting older, and he's right. We are getting older. You know.
I'll tell you a funny story too. Yeah, I just thought of this, but. So I used to play basketball, and that's the way I kept my exercise going. I played basketball, and so I was a part of a gym, and I'd go and I'd get in pickup games. And I found that when I reached my late 40s, early 50s, those pickup games were a lot more difficult to compete in. And I'll never forget, I was kind of warming up, practicing on a side goal, and this 18, 20-year-old kid comes up and he says, "Hey, you want to join our game over here? It's okay, my dad's playing with us." And I thought, man, I'm too old to be playing in pickup games in gymnasiums. And that was about the last time I did it. It was discouraging, actually.
In that context, I want to talk about a word, and that word is senior. Okay? From everything I've read, boomers don't really like that term senior. They don't want to go to something called a senior center. They don't want any of those senior discounts if they have to ask for them. What is this problem that we have with that word senior?
Well, we know at the Best Times, where we produce a senior publication, that there is an element in the public who will not want to read the Best Times because it's directed to seniors. And so it is an issue that is true, that the word senior is not a good word. And I don't know that I know what the proper word is.
I was about to ask you for that word. I would love to know that word.
I would love to know as well. And but yet, people do seem to attach a stigma to the title senior.
Maybe that all goes back to the fact that all of you think you're younger than you really are.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. We don't want to be labeled as seniors because in our minds we're 30.
We're just people.
Well, and when you see that you can get in the movie theater at 65 for a cheaper amount, if you don't feel that you're a senior, you'd rather it be at 80 that you could get in cheaper.
Okay, all of you work in different aspects of aging, different issues that you've dealt with in your careers. But I would like to know, what are the biggest aging issues that you personally worry about in your lives?
I deal with dementia every day. I am panicked about the possibility of developing it.
I can understand
Or
why.
my husband. Smack him upside the head, you know.
Who else?
I think most seniors that I have talked with are afraid that they'll live longer than their financial means to support themselves.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah.
Well, that's true. I tell you, in the business that I'm in, helping people at home, we get numerous calls every week from people that really need the help. And it's a very sad situation because they need help, but they can't afford help.
You know, caretaking is a huge issue, and it's only going to get bigger as the number of aged people grow. Right.
Yeah, hospital business is the same way. We have a huge senior adult unit, and there's that word senior again, but I don't know a nicer way to say it. And we see people both with dementia, but we also see people who, you know, are frail, and when you look at that, I mean, it's hard for me to go up there on that floor because I think, that's not me. That won't be me right there. So then you have to ask yourself the question, so what do I do that is in my power to do to make sure that's not me? And some of that is looking at the symptoms. I mean, we do have to do that. We have to look at what's going on with us physically and say, I may not feel that age, but I need to take care of myself. I got to go to the doctor, got to get my blood pressure checked, got to get those sugar screens, all those things.
It's like the woman in the opening piece who said, plan, plan, plan.
Yes,
yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I think, Chris, the fear of seniors as well as people age is that they begin to feel that they're going to be isolated. They're left alone because their peer group, their family group, their interest group have maybe been institutionalized or passed away or just in poor health. And then all of a sudden you're by yourself. And I think that's a big fear that seniors face.
Yeah, that brings it back to the question that we've talked about before, which is friendships. And as your friends begin to die, who do you replace them with? How do you have that socialization, that social group that you can lean on? Where do you go to?
Well, I think you have to remain active. That's one of the reasons I continue to work. But the biggest source is church activities. At least it is in the South. I don't know about other parts of the country. But each of us belong to a networking group where we meet on a regular basis. And I think that's a healthy thing to be a part of. Kind of encourages you to be out and about and be among people.
Does anybody here have a bucket list, things you want to do before you leave this earth?
I do.
You do? What?
I want to go and visit Ireland.
Ireland, okay.
And see where my family originally came from.
Okay, I hope you achieve that.
I'm planning on it.
Anybody else?
We had the January issue of the Best Times featured bucket list and what things you'd like to accomplish in your lifetime. And at my age, I've accomplished almost everything on my bucket list.
Well, maybe you need to come up with some new items.
I do have a couple of new ones. My wife grew up visiting a relative in South Florida, and we haven't been back to that little town in many years. That's one of the places we'd like to go. And I'd like to go to the Grand Canyon. I have never been there.
Bucket list?
Mine
no
would be,
skydiving, nothing
mine
like
would
that?
be weird. You wouldn't understand.
Why not?
But I'll tell you anyway.
Okay, tell us.
So I'm a turkey hunter. I love turkey hunting. In fact, that's what my passion in the spring is turkey hunting. In the United States, there are 4 species of turkeys, and they're in different parts of the country. My goal in life is to hunt turkeys. It's called the Grand Slam. Kill one of each type of turkey in 1 year. And I'm going to do it one day, but I've not done it yet.
That's awesome.
Lynn, what about you?
Well, you'll love Ireland, by the way, and I visited lots of countries, and there are tons more I want to visit before I get to the cruise. The cruise is when I don't want to drive anymore or walk anymore as much, where I want people to feed me and take care of me. That sounded really good, but I think I still have it in me to do a couple more trips where I just walk and walk and walk, and I love that.
All right, well, I hope you get to achieve all of your bucket list items. Okay, last question. I saved the easiest one for last. What is the key to happiness as we age?
Well, I think happiness is a state of mind. I think it's something that's internal. We create it for ourselves. We can choose to be unhappy or sad, or we can choose to be positive and pleasant. And that's kind of a self-discussion that you have with yourself.
It's like Mark Twain's quote, age is an issue of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
Good.
Anybody else?
Exactly.
Key to happiness as we age.
I think the key to happiness is that you, as Jimmy said, you surround yourself with positive people. I think the key is people. I don't think any of us do well by ourselves. By ourselves, there are too many thoughts up there. There are too many conversations that we probably don't need to have with ourselves. So when we're with people, wherever that is, we get different perspectives, different ideas, different people motivating us. I think the key is people.
Interesting. Yes, Ruth Ann.
I think, along with people, that happiness comes when you continue to help other people, when you don't focus in on yourself and your aches and your pains and the doctor's appointments and things, that you just are always looking for opportunities, and there are many opportunities, to continue to help other people.
And Ken, I know happiness for you is killing those 4 turkeys, but what else?
Well, you know, we all know unhappy people, and they have something in common, and I think you hit it on the nail on the head, Jimmy, is attitude. If you think of having a toggle switch, a light switch on your forehead, and if that switch is down, your ego kicks in, and your ego makes you blame everybody else for everything. It makes you whine and gripe and complain, and you can't accomplish anything because that switch is down into ego mode. But if you put it up into self-reflection mode, then you can become successful and happy and optimistic. When you really look at yourself, you are either the problem or you are greatness. And I think when we take responsibility for our own minds and toggle that switch up, we're happy.
All right. Well, thanks to all of you for being on The Best Times in this wonderful conversation about getting older.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.